Welcome back to Digital Week Online, our very first day, and of course, it's probably the best day because it's International Women's Day. And in keeping with that, yay, hands up. In keeping with that, we have a fantastic panel. I'm going to hand it right to our moderator, Nguyen from Powell Capital, who will introduce the topic and the speakers. And in honor of International Women's Day, I'm going to mute myself and cut my video. So, Jane, it's all yours. You're awesome. See you in an hour. Go for it.
Hi guys, my name is Jane Nguyen. I'm from Powell Capital. Powell Capital is a merchant bank focusing on advising and investing in digital business globally. The last 4 years, we've kind of pivoted and have redirected our focus on businesses that are leveraging the digitization of information and value, and i.e. DLT. Today's panel is Women in Investment and Trading. I'm joined today by 3 very accomplished women and investors with backgrounds in venture capital, management consulting, and emerging markets. So here with me, I have Irina Berkon, Aniko Szigetvari, and Rhona Morrell. Ladies, if you can spend about 1 minute each just to introduce yourself, your company, your career background, and tell us what gets you out of bed in the morning. And that could be, you have to get up because you're motivated for work and you love what you do, or you have a puppy like me who wakes you up. So Irina, let me start with you.
Sure, thanks. Hi, everyone, and happy Women's Day. Very happy to be here. It is 8 a.m. my time here in the US. So what got me out of bed today is this amazing panel and this amazing event. Very happy to start celebrating the International Women's Day with all of you. I am a CFO of a company called Metallicus. Our product is a payment system in the US called MetalPay, and we let people send each other fiat and cryptocurrencies throughout the US. We also have a blockchain that we are developing called the Proton chain, which allows us to send payments quicker and have identity on chain. And we're just very excited to keep growing our company here. And so that's my day job. And my side gig is a managing director of a fund called Golden Seeds. We are one of the larger angel investment funds in the US, and we fund women-run companies and businesses. We have been active in this for about 15 years, a little more than 15 years, and have really seen a lot of impact that funds like ours do on the investment opportunities that women seek and receive. And recently a study came out that this year the amount of money that women-run companies received from VC funds actually fell below 2.5%. It was getting close to 3% before. So we are, quite concerned and really trying to dig into why this is happening and how we can kind of change that and really pivot women into a better scenario with this pandemic rather than making them, be even worse off. So this is a hot topic right now for us and, for everyone who is interested in women around companies and diversity. So I'd be happy to jump into that a little bit later. Thank you so much.
Aniko?
Sure. My name is Aniko Szigetvari. The founding partner of Atlantica Ventures. Atlantica Ventures is an early stage venture capital fund focused on African impact investing with our headquarters in Nigeria. What gets me up in the morning is 2 things: supporting talented African entrepreneurs and coffee. Usually they start early in the mornings. And otherwise, I have about 20 years of investing experience in emerging markets across the globe, a lot of 16, 17 years in Africa, close to that in Latin America, and also other parts of the world. Prior to Atlantica Ventures, I was the global head of the Telecom Media and Technology Group at IFC. Now, Atlantica Ventures, we're focused on investing in seed to Series B rounds in very early stage startups. And through our impact focus, one of the lenses is investing in female entrepreneurs. and we can talk about more, but we also walk the walk and talk the talk. So 70% of our team is female.
Nice.
I believe we need to oversaturate a little bit. While I do believe in imbalance, I think is what's needed at every level. I think we need to oversaturate a little bit for a while to balance out the currently mostly male investing environment in the VC space.
And Rhona, do you want to introduce yourself and your background? I think
Yeah, sure. Hi, happy International Women's Day. I guess what gets me up in the morning is 2 children and also losing the COVID stone that I've put on. So me and my best buddy work out at 7 a.m. every morning. So that's what gets me up at the moment. Just a little bit about me. I have had a varied career with large organizations from kind of Red Bull Racing, Heineken, and 4 years ago, I went out on my own into business consulting. I invested in my first tech company this year. I'm a Princess Trust mentor. I'm also a founding member of Women Who Do Wonders International. And also what I'm most proud of is founding member and ambassador for ARC 2030, which is a global climate change initiative. So we're doing a lot of investment in that space and seeking investment. And I'm based here in the UK. So that's just a little bit about me.
Fantastic. So I guess we're here today, ladies, because in one capacity or another, we invest either through a VC, through a fund, or personally. So what are things you're looking out for when you're investing, and what kind of trends are you seeing over the last few years? Anyone feel free to jump in. I'm just going to go to Irina because no one's spoken up.
You know, I didn't prepare for this question, but the first thing that comes to mind, we have been hearing the word femtech a lot recently. That's where, you know, I guess I'll go. You know, I come from, you know, fintech and you know, digital technology space, so that was where I was kind of focused most of my career. But recently, femtech has really crossed our you know, paths. You know, a lot of companies, and what's interesting with that is, you know, I heard this one speaker say, you know, when some sort of you know, healthcare, you know, development comes out, you know, women don't just have, you know, 3 other body parts than men. Like almost all of body parts of women are different than men. So, you know, it's very kind of narrow-minded to only focus on you know, specific things. We really have to focus on everything when it comes to a woman in femtech. We've been seeing a lot of companies really focusing on, you know, the whole female body and, you know, the whole kind of industry of medicine specifically for women and not just, you know, certain parts. And I think that's becoming very interesting and really focusing on that. You know, Golden Seeds invested in a company that has been passed, you know, by other, you know, male-dominated VCs, and there was a very successful exit for that company, and it was in the femtech space. So we're very proud of us being kind of in the forefront and really understanding the investment part of it. So I think that there's going to be a lot of development in that as the investment community understands, you know, there isn't just a little difference between men and women. There is a big difference between men and women when it comes to medicine.
I just wanted to build on that as well. I think what I found really quite interesting recently on the 100 Women of Davos is around the disparity of the amount, and Irina, you were alluding to it earlier, of funding that actually goes to female entrepreneurs versus male. And on the flip side of that, the success rate and the return on investment in female founders versus male is substantially higher than guys. And I think you've only got to look at the medical world where you've got you know, the amount of investment in, hate to say it, but in erectile dysfunction, which might, you know, only impact 10% of men, actually versus women in the menopause and that tech development or femtech, where that, you know, pretty much impacts nearly 90% of women, gets about 2% of investment. So I think for me, it's about identifying those rebalances and opportunities.
On my side, I guess the startup space is it's relatively young in Africa. So there's lots of opportunities to disrupt inefficiencies and fill the gaps. So you see a lot of activity across the board, across all industries, and within all those sectors, you do see women in tech startups, starting them and scaling them, but it's definitely a smaller percentage of entrepreneurs. And when we find and talk to those entrepreneurs, usually one of the comments we get is that they think and they find that it's harder for them to raise funding than some of their male counterparts who might be doing something similar.
Yeah, and I think on top of that as well, when you look at it, the flip side, the people who are looking to invest, there is a lot more men out there who have this disposable funds to invest, whereas it's more women creating the solutions to the challenges. But a lot of the guys, consciously or subconsciously, don't necessarily connect with some of those femtech opportunities, and rightly so. Like, you can't expect them, apart from being married to one, to understand how, you know, complex we are as women, and I think that can be a barrier.
But I would say what's positive, I think, from the Africa context, or I'm positive about, is that a lot of the venture capital funds have an impact focus, especially the Africa ones, because of their own funders think it's really important for the startups to deliver impact. And it's through various means, but one of them is supporting female entrepreneurs. So there's definitely a heightened importance and recognition that those female entrepreneurs should be sought out and supported.
That's interesting you say that, Aniko, because I was reading an article last year and it's saying that in ESG investments, it's actually led by females. And I can see why. Okay, so Aniko, just about Africa as well, and I believe you also look after Latin America. What are some of the interesting, I guess, projects see coming out of that space, not even femtech related, but initiatives?
So in Africa, a lot is happening in fintech, but you also see a lot of activity in logistics and supply chain in general, healthcare, health tech, education, digital security is starting to pick up a year or two ago. This is one of our verticals. Year or two ago, when we talked about digital security in the Africa context, we got some strange looks. Post-COVID, it's no longer the case. So I think that's going to be an important investment area. There's so much opportunity to fill the gap or disrupt inefficiencies in Africa. If you have a good idea and the wherewithal to do it, I think it's a field of opportunities.
Yeah, and are there any that actually invested personally?
Any?
Are there any companies you invested in personally? Or through your
so
fund?
we've invested in 8 startups so far, and they are in the fintech, logistics, insurtech areas primarily, but in our pipeline looking to do a lot more in addition to these verticals in digital security, tech, IoT in general, and enterprise SaaS. I think there's lots of opportunities. The interesting and fascinating thing in Africa, and maybe in other markets too, that there are some issues that are very local issues that you need to solve. There are issues that if you solve, you can then take that tech and bring it to another emerging market. And there are issues that are global. They're across the board. It's an issue. We recently invested in an insurtech company called Curacell, based in Nigeria, and they do claims processing and fraud management in the healthcare sector. And that's an issue across the board, whether it's Europe, US, Latin America, Asia. So it's fascinating to see that there are these 3 layers of investment opportunities. So one can learn a lot by looking at other markets, but also the startups can really make a difference, not only in Africa, but they can scale potentially to other regions as well.
Yeah, and I think there's an opportunity as well when we look at investment, not to necessarily just physically investing financially, but also the investment we can make as kind of leaders and influencers around helping getting these female entrepreneurs set up. And that could be advice, it could be business cases, it could be your network. So I think often people shy away from investment and think it has to be money. I'm like, I haven't got any, but actually there's a ton of stuff that I do, you know, with the Princess Trust or in the sustainability sector that actually is providing a service of investment versus the financials.
And maybe
to add to that a little,
sorry, go ahead, Irina.
Oh, I was going to say, and to expand on that also, to educate the investors as well. So this is what we try to do, you know, at Golden Seeds, the ones that come and join our fund, but also, you know, in general, what I try to do, especially with the, you know, maybe VCs or iBanks that are mostly dominated by men still, you know, in their leadership. So educating the investors is very important, and educating them in, you know, even given the statistics that a diverse board, a diverse executive team will actually result in better returns on the investment. And a lot of them don't think this. And, you know, I didn't think this, I didn't know the statistics. And then when I actually started looking at the companies I'm investing in and started working in the ones that are a little bit more diverse than you know, maybe in prior experiences, I can see why that is. And another thing I'll add, you know, at Golden Seeds, we invest in all kinds of industries across the board. And sometimes it's easy to, you know, veer towards the ones you understand and, you know, stay away from ones that don't. And, you know, I invested in a company that's in clean tech space, and I have no idea what that is, but we had somebody who was an expert, and she really did a lot of due diligence on it. She presented it to us. I could understand certain parts like the return on my investment or revenue generating, but not the technology. And I think that's very important for investors to also say, you know, yes, I might be an expert in technology and know nothing about healthcare, but that doesn't mean that I shouldn't give, you know, this healthcare or clean tech company a chance and really use my knowledge to understand the pieces that are important in the investment that are the same across the board, like revenue generating or return on your investment. So that's what I try to focus on, and our fund also does that.
And I think with the inclusion piece with that is important. So as we're questioning and looking at those investment opportunities, what we want to obviously avoid is, or we have the tick box female or BAME community or disabled, but actually it's about how inclusive are they within that process of the business case and how involved they are in that expertise and guidance. So I think, you know, there's the service element, there's the education, there's the physical money, and then there's the kind of, exactly as Irina said, it's the diversity and inclusion of that potential opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so what I was going to add is that I think supporting female entrepreneurs is really important, but equally important is to try to diversify, even in startups or any company for that matter, the gender mix within companies, and to look at it level by level, because a lot of companies, what they might be able to achieve overall is, let's say, close to 50% female representation. But if you look at it sort of level by level, you have a lot of women on the bottom, and then maybe a little bit up top, and not a whole lot in between. And usually the reason why there's not a whole lot in between is because the enabling environment within those workplaces is not there to support women to be able to move up those ladders. So like COVID shown that a lot of women had to drop out of work. If you don't have the support environment within companies, then they're unable to move up. So I find it a little bit artificial when the measure is X% of my workforce, because it should be as much as possible. Obviously, it's not always possible to achieve balance, but to have in every level as much gender balance as possible. That's one comment I would say. And then the other is that even at the board level, my last kind of 20 years or so in doing this, I'm usually the only female board member on boards. And as statistics have shown and studies have shown, usually it takes about 30% of the board has to be females. You need to have a few in order for the women to be effective and to be heard. So just one woman is usually not enough. I wouldn't call myself a wallflower, so I definitely speak up. But I think as studies show, and I've seen it on boards, the moment you have 2 or 3 women, I think the discussion significantly shifts. So it's not a lone voice chiming in, it's the discussion and the things that are discussed and how they discuss significantly change.
And also what's really, and I absolutely support that, I think it's not always traditionally the one person that tends to be the HR role. So you want that person who's in operations, finance, etc. And I think, you know, it's really hard if you want to bring up the next generation of female entrepreneurs when they haven't got that, you know, kind of board to look up to that really excites them and motivates them, and they can see that, you know, someone who represents them is being heard. So yeah, bigger challenge, I guess. We need to bring it back to women investment, but yeah.
Very interesting conversation, guys, because I know that a lot of the startups that have been pitching to us lately, they say, yep, co-founder, female. When you dig in, you see, okay, 10% is only allocated to the female founder. So they're kind of just shoving the female in there so that they can get the recognition or the attention required. Yeah, so yes, I agree. You need to dig deeper and go to different layers. Okay, so next question, guys. I've got a great one. So climate change was a key theme at the WEF last year. And I think someone's mentioned about 100 women in Davos. And companies and fund bosses are being, I guess, pressured by shareholders, employees, and activists to redirect their resources to combat climate change. So hence a lot of money has been poured into ESG investments. Have you guys seen anything interesting in this space that you want to like dig deeper and share with the audience? And I guess Aniko can see a lot in Africa and in South America.
Oh, I wouldn't say I'm an expert in this topic, so I'd probably pass the baton on to somebody who's actually dealt in the space.
I guess I could probably talk about the experiences with ARC 2030, and I think yes, COVID had a sense of rebalance for everyone, not only as people and individuals, and as we've already said, females were adversely affected, so a lot more females and individuals have made some pretty strong choices in the last 12 months to either go out on their own, venture out and just find that work-life balance. But on top of that as well, we had the environmental impacts. You know, we've had this impact of the reset around the world and how people have really engaged with kind of Mother Earth. So I think a lot of the work that I do with ARC 2030 is really around trying to make that investment not a guilt trip, not a greenwashing, but very much here's an opportunity. If you're an FMCG brand, just throw in 1 cent, you know, of every sale or pack or product or service, whatever. And that can be fully integrated into an end-to-end climate initiative, but something that has the kudos of, you know, 300 NGOs and the backing of the UN and the credibility that's required. So I think there are more and more big brands that I'm now talking to that have there's this confusion. Do you have a CSR part or do you have a marketing part? And a lot of brands are moving it, instead of having one or the other, saying actually as part of that marketing investment, we know our consumers have this high on their agenda. Will they necessarily pay more for it? Maybe not, but are they expecting us to do something about it? Absolutely. So there's a huge space out there at the moment.
So one of Power Capital's portfolio companies, WeForest, and they work with large companies, or so companies large and small, and are committed to, I guess, make the earth cooler by planting trees and forest restoration. And, you know, to date, they've actually planted 32 million trees, and they've and they're partnered up with the companies like Deloitte, some of the other big names. Rhona, you've worked with big names. Have you seen any initiatives in that space? Have they been pushing for?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I mean, I think, ARC itself is going to restore 500 million hectares across savannas, deserts, oceans, mangroves, forests. And I guess the plant a tree is the obvious sexy one. Everyone talks about planting trees, but actually, if you plant the equivalent hectare in peatlands, not quite as sexy, but actually it sequences 20 times more carbon. So I think it's again, goes back to what Irina was saying around kind of education. So I think, I'm not going to name particular brands at the moment, but there are companies out there that are tying into initiatives. So you've got the smaller startups that, they don't have the headspace or the expertise or the knowledge in this area. So it's really easy to partner up with an existing service like ARC or One Tree Planted, etc. But for the big guys, what they can really do is they can put in the big box and still kind of, I guess, if you like, it's giving the job to somebody else. And it's not a lazy thing. It's these guys have been doing sustainability for 10, 20, 30, 50 years in some cases. They know what they're doing. But I think we do need to move away from just the tree planting. It is about plastics out of the ocean. It is about carbon sequestration. And whether you love it or hate it or believe in it or not, I guess, I look at it and I think, well, unless you can prove that restoring Mother Nature by 500 million hectares is a bad thing, we should continue to do it.
Irina, are you seeing anything in your space?
Honestly, I really haven't. This hasn't come across. That doesn't mean we're not interested or we don't agree, that we should be conscious. What I would just say in general, I would discourage companies to use that as a buzzword. And the same goes for we have a woman on the team, right? She happens to be here. Yeah. So this used to be crypto, right? You say the word crypto, and you get funded. Blockchain, internet. With climate change, I think it is a very complicated topic, and you really need to be educated. And this is why I have not much to say about it, because I'm not maybe as educated to speak about it. But when somebody comes in and uses these buzzwords, you really have to be prepared to defend them, right? That's my 2 cents about that.
Yeah, and I think, it's like anything, it has to be holistic. And I think, any one of us on this speaker panel could hear somebody come in and say, yeah, we're a sustainable women-led opportunity. We could ask 6 key questions and know within a nanosecond if there was true meat to what they were saying. So I think sustainability has to be holistic. It's not just buy your carbon credits and make your business carbon neutral. You're just passing the problem on somewhere else. How is that through your supply chain? How are you doing that through the business? And sustainability should be the DNA throughout the business. And likewise, wherever your board is. So I think there's definitely more and more brands that are realizing they can get caught out on greenwashing very, very quickly and can pay the price from a consumer angle. And I think those that have been bitten, all the other companies have learned from that. But there's some great examples like Patagonia, clothing manufacturer. There's lots of great companies out there, circular economy. So I think there's the Ellen Foundation for Clothing. Ellen MacArthur, that's it, sorry. There's lots of great examples out there, but if you're going to do it, make sure you do it holistically.
And make sure, I guess maybe one more add is make sure it makes sense for your company and for the investors. The one that came to mind, I forget if it came across our desk or what, but there was a company that said, for every pair of shoes you buy, we donate a pair of shoes in a country, in Africa or something, right? And then they went bankrupt because they didn't do it properly. It was a good, deed, and, the idea was good, but then all the investors lost their money because they weren't actually doing this properly. So, if you're going to say, climate change, diversity, helping poorer countries, just make sure it makes sense for the company and for your investors.
Yeah, I did an example once of a massive clothing manufacturer. He was claiming that they were making these trousers out of recycled plastic. And I was like, oh, this is really pretty cool. So I was like, oh, you're getting the plastic from the oceans. And then when I dug deep, basically there was a factory pumping out plastic bottles, so virgin plastic. I was literally going next door to make these trousers. But technically it was, recycled, so you're absolutely right. Make sure that it's part of, and this goes back to, it's part of your business case, it's part of your numbers and your, kind of forensic analysis about how you're developing that business. And don't be shy to say that potentially there's money to be made here as well. People feel guilty about it, but actually don't, because the moment that we can make that kind of return on investment, both in the charity sector, but also in the sustainability sector, we'll start to make it happen.
Yeah, in my just an add-on, in my experience, you actually cannot deliver impact unless the underlying enterprise or company is actually profitable. So to me, it's number one that the business case needs to make sense and needs to generate returns, because that's how you can scale impact. Otherwise, you're either doing it too small or you fail altogether. So I don't think there's a contradiction between profit and impact. I think they can go hand in hand, and they should go hand in hand, because then the impact part is actually amplified so much more.
Okay. So I assume you ladies receive, hundreds, if not thousands of proposals each year. What makes a proposal stand out for you? And obviously, don't just use buzzwords, have a realistic business model. You need to be profiting. But what else do you look out for? Anyone can feel free to jump in. Irina, your face.
Oh, I'll go second.
I would say, obviously, try to, at least in my case, which is very early stages, you very much look at the entrepreneur and their background, because at this pre-seed A stage, it's a lot about the entrepreneur. You look at the market opportunity and see if there's a moat around the business, so it's not so easy to disrupt and interrupt. And then see if they're tackling some unique problem that nobody has thought about tackling just yet. So there's something special about what they're trying to do. They're not the third and fourth Me Too of just a slightly different shade of the same. So that's, I would say, is a one factor on the business side for us. Obviously, there's a whole impact component to it, so it does have to bring significant impact as well. And so that's, I would say, the first filter. But then it always comes down to actually chatting with the entrepreneurs. Yeah,
I definitely back up I think for me it would be like really reviewing their due diligence, and I would love to find the absolute opposite of my area of expertise. And so if I was able to understand it on a one-pager and then relay that to my husband, then we're probably onto a good thing. If it's taken me 8, 15, 20 slides in before I start to understand it. But definitely that vibe that you get in those first couple of minutes with the entrepreneur, to some degree, even forgetting the business case and the presentation and just having that chat.
I think it's important, especially since we invest in such a variety of industries, and each one of us has different experience. It's important to have a very simple, first, line or first one pager that anybody from any industry can understand why you are doing what you're doing. I may be an expert in blockchain and crypto, but I will understand femtech just because they describe it easily, or even clean tech or something that's not necessarily in my wheelhouse. I think that's what you ladies are basically saying. And then you can dig deeper and understand, the problem and the technology and the entrepreneur, but it needs to be very simple first. What exactly are you doing? And if you can't really explain it, then that's already a red flag.
Yeah, so we have this saying that if you can't explain your business in 2 sentences, then you don't know what you're doing, what you're solving.
Yes, but I would
okay, so
caution a little bit. I would caution a little bit on this because at least in emerging market context, a lot of the entrepreneurs are usually first-time entrepreneurs. So it's the first time they're trying to do something and build a business, and they have a skill that might be technical or market expertise or something, and not necessarily communication. So I would say one needs to be a little bit careful. You're not gonna get the US kind of serial entrepreneur knows exactly what the VC investors are looking for and therefore produces a well thought out deck. One needs to be a little bit careful and dig deeper, and that's what I mentioned. We like to talk to entrepreneurs if they're within our thesis, just to make sure that we understand what they're trying to put forward, because otherwise sometimes you can actually forego interesting opportunities, and only because the entrepreneur is not the best at communicating just yet. And then we can work with that entrepreneur. If the idea is good that he's doing, then we can work on improving that skill set.
Yeah, I definitely support that, because actually when we were talking earlier about where different people sit, when I was working in innovation on a board for a company, some of the best ideas we had were the people at the coalface, doing that job day in, day out, but they didn't necessarily have the skills to know how to present to the board, or they would feel undermined. So yeah, I definitely support that. I think there's a piece to do around recognizing as someone who's got a great idea, but maybe not, as gobby as me and is happy to kind of talk up all the time.
Well, that goes again to women, right? If women don't see examples of that, then how are they supposed to learn? We actually have heard that women come to present, and most of our members, most of our members are women, but women come in and they feel very different presenting to a group of women investors than they feel when they're presenting to a group of all men. We do have men sometimes in the room, but it's majority women, and I think that goes to that. We have to educate them, but we have to also understand that they don't have a lot of these examples in front of them that their men counterparts may.
I completely agree with that. Just a question about your network and utilizing your community. So a lot of successful investors have become successful because they've been at the right place in the right time. Have you guys utilized your network or your community to, I guess, share deal flows? And if a proposal or an opportunity comes through one of your network, do you look at that more closely because of that? Or do you look at all deals the same?
I guess I'd be lying if I said I didn't look at it quicker when it comes from a community that I know and trust. And I'm involved in various global networks, and I've learned to know which ones now are savvy when it comes to kind of investments, and they're really open with sharing those opportunities as early as possible. So yeah, but I wouldn't say I would not look at something that hadn't come through a trusted source. I just might not open the email as quickly.
That's the beauty of venture capital, is that you're always looking for co-investors. You always share, especially at the very early stages, you always share the risk. You want other investors around the table, so that naturally it's very different from private equity, which I used to also do, where you want to grab the deal for yourself. In VC space and investing, you're sharing, and so that naturally builds a community where people share deals with each other, and that there's definitely power in that. But you always extend the network, right? So I think any deal comes from anybody is really welcome. But yeah, there's definitely a big power in the networks.
Yeah,
Irina,
I agree. I would. Oh, sorry.
That's like, Irina, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, well, I was just gonna say again, bringing this back to the women investors and women-run companies. The issue is the same with women-run VCs or women-run funds. We need to be brought in, to the table with the men-run VCs, or the ones that are a little bit less diverse. So I try to look at it that way as well. I had a deal on the table, and I said I'm going to call all of my women-run VCs first, and give them the opportunity, and then we can expand to everyone else. And I just wanted to point that out, that's also an issue sometimes, because the ones with all the connections are rarely women, and they can just make 3 calls. The heads of the big VC funds that are men, they can make 3 calls to their counterparts at the other funds, and the deal would be done. The women sometimes don't have the same opportunity or the same connections. It's just a numbers game, right? There's just not as many. So.
Just about investing, this is a good one. What advice would you give to your younger self about investing?
Buy Bitcoin.
My younger self, or to somebody else?
Your younger self, or a younger person who's getting into investing.
Oh, do you know what? I guess a little bit like with what I do with the Prince's Trust, I think it's having the confidence and conviction to kind of take a risk and go for it. The worst that happens is obviously you lose the investment, but every time you fail or you get something wrong, you are continuously learning. And I guess if I was a young advising me 20, 25 years ago, if I think now where my connections would be and how quickly I could have made that phone call to a VC versus starting it much later on, I'd be up there with them with the best. So get in there early for sure. And, practice your due diligence, practice your speaking to a friend or your husband or the dog, whatever it needs to be. And just be bold and be really, really strong on exactly what you want and what you're looking for in that area of investment.
So mine would be buy Bitcoin and buy a lot of it.
That's what I said, buy Bitcoin. But relating to that, I'll say that you can ask, what I would say to myself is, ask everyone's opinions, get everybody's knowledge, understand everything there is to understand, and then make your own decision, even if it goes against, and people have loud voices, right? People have loud opinions that may, drown your own, but really make your own choice and decision, even if it's not, following the most popular one you're receiving.
I find one thing I did lack was, taking those risks, taking those chances. So I kind of occasionally missed those opportunities when I was younger. But now I'm really open to see, I guess, all the deal flows that come in. Aniko, what would you tell yourself?
What I would say, I used to manage before Atlantica Ventures a relatively large team, and mostly male. I would say 70% male because of the sector, and it was also investments and all emerging markets. And what I constantly saw was females, team members who were incredibly good at what they were doing would be shy to put forward their thoughts, their work ideas, that they would step behind and let the male counterparts make the arguments, put the ideas forward, although they may have done the job. So I tried to work on that in my group back then, to make sure that the people who did the work would actually be presenting it and defending it. Just, don't be shy. Basically, if you've done the work, then represent that and own it. And just general advice is just for anybody. Honestly, build your network as early as you can, as wide as you can. It will bring its fruits, and help that network and feed that network and support that network, and the benefits will come.
Yeah, and I guess as well, like how many of us here how many times have we come out of a big meeting or a boardroom and gone, they really didn't have a clue, did they? Or you built up the assumptions that the people in the room knew what they were talking about or were more experienced than you. And you know, it was one of the reasons why, you know, part of the reasons why I went out on my own in the end, because I just thought, actually, I just keep lying to myself constantly and then believing that mindset. And actually, you go in, like Aniko was saying, with that strength and the confidence, and you'd be amazed at the number of people suddenly start nodding their heads. And in the back of their heads, they're going, she sounds good, I've got no idea what she's on about. But actually, the conviction in the story. So, yeah.
So today's panel is about women in investing and trading. So I've been dabbling a bit of crypto trading myself, and it's been very tough because crypto is a 24-hour market. So I've tried it. I had little sleep, and I've just kind of given up. Does anyone here on the panel trade? And if you do, what do you trade? And any suggestions you can give to our audience? Irina? Or Rhona just, I'm sorry.
I don't trade at all. I actually, in the world of Bitcoin and crypto, I started to look into it during COVID, and I interviewed a guy on my podcast, and it was like, explain it to me. Like, as a dummy, I don't understand, explain it. And then I joined this WhatsApp group on all of this crypto and blockchain, and I would wake up every morning to like 150 messages going, get in here, get in this is me. And I totally freaked out and kind of went, I can't do this. But it's still something in the back of my mind that goes, I can do this. Like, this isn't as hard as it sounds. So actually, I'd appreciate, you know, Irina's kind of knowledge about how we can get involved in it that isn't such a headache and it isn't quite so scary.
So, you know, we can have a whole other panel, you know, a whole other day about it. But I do trade a little bit, and mostly because my job, you know, my company where I work is, you know, has two products that revolve around trading crypto. I won't say, you know, exactly what I'm buying and selling, that, you know, just to avoid any issues, but it is very interesting, and the technology around it is I think it's very cool. You know, we have a wallet that we've built called Proton Wallet. You know, anybody can use it. It's available all over the world. And we are building a lot of really cool features within that wallet that I test out all the time. You know, I use very little money. You know, obviously you want to only invest or trade with whatever you're willing to lose. So it's very little bit, and I trade all kinds of coins in there, and I do all kinds of really cool things in there, like swapping and staking and just watching the markets. And this is kind of how I'm learning, because I was never a trader. I never, did a lot of stock trading. I never did a lot of crypto trading, but because of the technology that I'm now learning through this wallet, it's very interesting to me. So maybe that's an advice, right? Just, maybe get a wallet, get this wallet, get another, user-friendly wallet, because I think the issue has been, and this was the issue for me, that it wasn't user-friendly, right? It's not very easy to find, it's not easy to get, cleared with Coinbase within a minute, or with, even with MetalPay, or, maybe it's not available in your country or whatever. But if you can find something that's easy to use, and you can just do a little bit of things in there and just explore the technology, that's what I'm doing. I don't know if it's right or wrong, but that's what I'm doing. So I'd be happy to share it with you, Rhona, another time. But
please do send me a DM. I'd love to.
Yeah. So I think it's cool. I have also stayed up all night, looking at stuff before, but then, I realized I have a day job.
Because also
refreshing as well.
Well, because the markets are always open, right? So, I'm sure everyone's heard about, Elon Musk tweeted about Dogecoin, right? So, everyone's watching, Dogecoin. So I'm sitting there watching it, it's like, no, stop.
But it's like, I want to educate myself. So we were talking about earlier, what would you have said to your younger self? Well, I feel like I'm in that now because I've got two young daughters. I hope they're not doing crypto just yet. They're only 11 and 7. But I've also got my Princess Trust mentors who are two young females. And it's like, I want to feel like I'm ahead with the technology to be able to give them that opportunity to bite now, So, it's a whole.
Well, they will know it before. When my daughter has a crypto wallet on her phone, it has no money. It has maybe $20 in it. And she texts me sometimes, oh, did you see Bitcoin went down 20% today? I'm like, do you know what that means? But the fact that they hear these words, imagine when you were 11, you'd hear this, right? So she will know. I think it is all very important, and it'll stay in there somewhere. And, yeah. And it is a cool crypto wallet that she's using her $10 to trade in it. So,
Aniko, do you trade?
Yeah, maybe I'll answer it more from the Atlantica Ventures Africa investor hat is one of the a couple of the markets in Africa are some of the largest cryptocurrency markets. I think where we're trying to wrap our minds around it is to see how various governments will handle regulation around that, and different countries have started approaching it differently. So in terms of an investor's point of view, I think seeing a little bit more development on the regulatory side, at least in emerging markets or Africa context, I think will be needed, because as we speak, things are changing, and that I think is going to have an impact on what happens and how successful some of these companies will be.
Yeah. Ladies, we're almost at the hour. So how do people get in touch with you? How do people contact you? If one's, give a little summary or, contact information that people can reach out to you by?
LinkedIn is the best for me.
Yes.
I connect, I post a lot of things on there that, I think is interesting. If anyone connects with me on there and think they're also interesting, I'd be happy to talk about them. That's where I post a lot of the things about the fund and my company.
Yeah, likewise, LinkedIn or the Rhona Morrell podcast, whichever.
What podcast, Rhona?
It's just called the Rhona Morrell podcast. If you want a good giggle.
I'm adding you right now.
And Aniko?
LinkedIn, either Atlantica Ventures or my own, please feel free.
We're very secretive people, so LinkedIn for me as well. Thanks, ladies. You've been fantastic.
Thank you for having us.
For the opportunity.
Thank you so much. Happy Women's Day.
Yes.
Likewise. Happy International Women's Day.
Bye.
Bye.